This is Jesse Austin with another episode of Community Business Matters. I'm here with my co-host, Carla Lenk. We have a guest this week, Mystique Macomber, who has a very interesting story to tell about life choices, career changes, and taking a leap forward into a different lifestyle, I guess you would call it. And Mystique and I have known each other for quite some time as business associates. Our paths have crossed quite a bit, and I was excited to hear about this new phase in her life. She's, I guess she would describe herself as a journalist, blogger.
Yes.
Traveler.
Yes.
And she's had a very eventful life, and now her life is becoming even more eventful. So, Mystique, would you like to talk a little bit about a new enterprise that you're involved in? That's having a blog.
Correct. As you know, Jesse, I worked for many years for Central Wisconsin newspapers, and I used to write columns occasionally for that. And in the world of the online today, you don't call them columns anymore, you call them blogs. But that's essentially what I'm doing. Is I have a website, MystiqueMacomber.com, which is a professional website I set up originally to help look for a remote editing job. And in the meantime, I had been blogging personally, and then I decided to roll it over into more of a professional blog. So that's how I got started with the blog that way. And so it is pretty much columns written from my perspective about what's happening in my life, but then I tie it back into being a better writer. As you know, I was a copy editor for a long time and a reporter and a writer. And I originally had started writing about copy editing until I finally had somebody say to me, quite honestly, that's boring. Nobody wants to read about copy editing, and honestly, I had to agree with him. So instead I thought, well, it still is about writing though, and everybody, if you write a little or you don't write at all or you write a lot, would like to be a better writer. Mm-hmm. Even as a professional writer, I was always looking for ways to improve. How can I do this better? How can I engage readers? What can I do differently? So in keeping with that, taking what I know from journalism, my many years here in newspapers, how can I help other people be better writers? And that is what the blog has evolved into.
Now, who subscribes to your blog?
Primarily right now it's family and friends, okay. But it is available to anyone who finds it or would like to go and look for it.
Now, is there a subscription fee that
No.
you charge?
No, there's no charge for it. People can come. You don't have to subscribe. You can just come and read the blogs. If you do subscribe, though, then you'll get an email message when I do post something new. I put together a little email that says, hey, here's a new one, and here's kind of what it's about.
So how do you support yourself?
Well, right now I'm supporting myself through a different part-time job. Ultimately, I would like this to be able to get some sponsorships for it, or to be able to have some affiliate marketing, which means, for instance, if I use Bluehost as my host for my website, if someone else would go through Bluehost, going through my link, then Bluehost would give me a little bit of the money that they had paid in. Mm-hmm. There's no additional cost to the subscriber, to the person who uses these links. It's a fairly common practice among websites. It's called affiliate marketing, and that's often how people make their money with it. I also would like to be able to provide some specific I'm working on an ebook and maybe some other things for writers who might wish to subscribe just for that. The tips in the blog, there will never be any charge for that. But if they'd like more information or to go more in depth, or maybe I could do some personal coaching, then those are ways that I would be able to make money that way.
Seems to me that as you talk about what you're trying to do, that you're furthering yourself from the journalistic part of it, other than the academic how-to, then the actual news story. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Well, it's not journalism from the standpoint of what we used to do, like for news stories, where you're reporting on something. This is much more of a column type thing where it's a personal experience.
Like an editorial.
In a way, in a sense, yes. But rather than trying to persuade someone, I'm more sharing an experience that has happened to me and what my feelings are about it. Engaging readers, though, however, to encourage them to have that conversation. I want people to think about it. How does it impact them? How does it affect them? So when I post something then on Facebook or other social media, I like it when people respond and say, oh, yeah, this happened to me. Or I'll ask a question. What do you think about this and such? To try and build that relationship, which was always a little bit difficult with the newspaper because people were reading it in their homes. There wasn't necessarily that back and forth,
right.
that you're able to get through social media, through the internet.
I think early on in one of your earliest columns, blogs, it might have been the first one where you described it as your version of Eat, Pray, Love, that autobiographical book
Yes.
and film
Yes.
that talks about someone's journey
Right.
from one space to another, and that's how you describe what you're doing in a way.
Right, and I've had people explain it to me or look at what I've done and say, you're like, have you read this book? And I would finally said, okay, I need to go and read the book. So I finally did. I decided early on, I always liked to travel. And so whenever I would go someplace, I would always think, is this someplace I would like to live? And sometimes yes, sometimes no. And each time I would think, oh, I would love to come back here and live here for 6 months or a year and be able to become part of the community and shop there and live there and meet people and build relationships. And yet I never really was able to, other than, a couple weeks here and there where you go do the vacation thing. And I finally decided if I'm going to do this, I need to do it now or it might not happen. I'm at kind of a sweet spot in my life. My kids don't need me right now. My parents don't need me right now. So I felt I needed to take this leap. So I quit my 9-to-5 job, 8-to-5 job, and I have moved to Tennessee, and I will be going to Portugal this spring. That'll be my first journey away. So, but yes, in keeping with the Eat, Pray, Love theme, looking at learning more about myself, who I am, and what my life is.
So at some point you had come to a realization that there was more that you were looking for?
Yes.
Okay. Make a long story short.
Yes. Thank you, Jesse. Taking all those words and putting editing it down for me. Good for you.
I'm glad you explained to the audience the journeys that you're taking because are you a native of Wisconsin Rapids?
Yes.
Okay. And so you settled here, you raised a family here.
Correct.
You had a long career in journalism here, working
Yes.
for our local newspapers and things like that, and also in public relations and marketing communications here as well.
Yes.
And now you're uprooting yourself.
I am. I'm becoming a digital nomad is the actual term for it, where what you can do, you do digitally. So any place I have my laptop and an internet connection, I can do my job. And so any place in the world, which is, well, with Wi-Fi. So good Wi-Fi.
How did you pick Portugal?
It was someplace that I had visited, and so I knew I needed someplace that I had been that I would like to go back to. I didn't just want to randomly pick someplace and then go, ooh, this was a bad idea. I loved it there. The people were so friendly. It was beautiful. It was definitely someplace that I could see myself feeling comfortable to live there for an extended period. And when I decided I wanted to travel, I knew I had to have a destination in mind because if I said, well, I want to go someplace someday, it never happens. So I had to be very specific, and so I said, I'm going to Portugal, either by December 1st or spring at the latest. Well, December, of course, has come and almost gone, so I am looking at spring. But I have my plane ticket bought, and beginning of March, I will be heading there.
I haven't read all of your blog posts, but I've read enough to I've got that point where you were talking about finally buying that
Yes.
ticket and making the commitment that you were actually going to do it. And I have to. And you've also spoken about the fact that people have different responses to this. They can be have a sympathetic attitude about saying, "Oh, how wonderful," and I would never think of doing something
Yes.
like that. And others would say, Yes, that sounds like something I might have tried, or I might be trying, or something like that. I'm probably in the former category on this.
That's okay. Everybody has their own journey.
Yes, but I do find it exciting, which is why I want to have you as a guest here, because this is it's a career change and a life change as well.
It is. It is. It definitely is. And it's not for everyone, but so often when I do tell people, like you said, they'll have the different reactions. But sometimes they'll say, oh, I would love to do that, but I could never do that. The truth is you could, but you have to decide that that's what you're going to do. You actually have to do it. You have to carry through with it. Anybody can change their life experience. They can decide that this is not the path I want to go on. I want to go a different direction. But you need to be willing to take the steps to do that. In my case, I needed to give up my job. I needed to give up my life. I gave away or sold pretty much everything that I own, and in order to make it happen, to make this dream happen for me. So it's possible, but it's a choice, and so often people don't want to make that choice.
Okay, I'm going to be very curious now. Whereabouts in Portugal are you going to land?
Lisbon.
Lisbon? Okay.
Capital city. I haven't figured out exactly where I'm living yet, but I'm doing my research on that now.
And much of what you just said about anybody could do it and they just have to do it sounds very familiar to things that Carla has said to me. And
I travel a lot.
Wonderful.
And so there was a period where I was between jobs, as it were, and she was giving me all kinds of very good advice, and which I sometimes followed and sometimes didn't. So,
well, and that's okay.
Yeah. So.
You need to make your own decisions, yes. And it's good to have input and to have people that you use as resources, or what do you think? I mean, I definitely, have certain people that I go to for certain things. What do you think about this? Because I know kind of what their life experiences are. So it's always important, but ultimately it comes down to what decision do I want to make, what's right for me. Probably isn't right for you, maybe isn't right for you. So it's a very personal.
I like to go and then I like to leave. I like to have that back door that I can just slip away and come home. But my whole family is here. So it seems to me that this is my lodestone, my place that I come back to. I just was in Iceland.
Oh, wonderful.
It's a very different country. Spoke English. Everybody spoke English, but they were all supposedly Vikings. And I talked to Jesse about this. I said, in my history lessons, Vikings came from many different places. It was sort of the rogue men of many different lands, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and sometimes Russia. As long as they were on the coast, they would get a boat, go out, rob, cause destruction, bring back the loot. And in Iceland, because it was inhabited first by the Vikings, they decided that was in itself a nation of Vikings.
Okay.
And they don't like other people settling there.
Okay.
So they make it really difficult for you to do that. It's about the size of Tennessee, Kentucky, somewhere in there, with 350,000 people as population. Great roads, better than Wisconsin, actually, and good signage on the roads. Economically, very, very good, but I wouldn't want to stay there all the time. It has, for that size, has 130 sometimes active volcanoes.
Oh.
That's a lot in a small area. And fishing, tourism, and agriculture are the three industries that they have. Otherwise, it's like Hawaii. Everything has to be brought in.
Sure.
And thank you for describing
You don't want to go to Iceland.
this cultural aspect.
Well, just to visit at least.
Just to
you know.
visit.
But you had pointed out in one of your posts about your choice of Portugal is because you found the people there to be warm,
Yes.
friendly, and embracing.
Very much so. Even when they didn't speak English, they would be very helpful. My friend and I were on the street trying to figure out which way to go, and we obviously looked lost. And somebody comes kitty corner across the street to us, like, "Can I help?" kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
Didn't speak any English, and of course we had about 10 words of Portuguese between us. Please, thank you, that sort of thing. And so we're trying to explain, and the woman's trying to point, and but I mean, they would go out of their way to help you, and even when they weren't in the service industry, just very friendly, helpful people.
Is the Portugal
place.
language based on Spanish?
Portuguese has Spanish in it. It has French in it. The verb conjugations are very much like French. They say that if you speak Portuguese, you understand Spanish better than if you Spanish trying to understand Portuguese.
And of course, Brazil they speak Portuguese
Yes.
also.
Yes, and I guess there are some differences between Brazilian Portuguese and Portugal Portuguese, but I
Well,
don't know what
that's
they
like
are.
English Northern versus Southern.
That's
You can get lost in the twang down there.
that's true.
But I think for the benefit of our audience, was there a precipitating fact? I know that generally speaking, you felt that there were some things that you wanted to change, but was there one thing that tipped the scale that said, I have to do this now? Or
I think it was just kind of a lot of things coming together at one time. I was working on a play at the time, and a doll's house, and the main character in that was going through a major life change. And I think that kind of made me think through where I was at in my own life and what I wanted to do. But that wasn't the only thing. There was just, my kids were getting older, getting out of the house. I knew that I didn't necessarily want to be in my job for the rest of my life. I always did want to travel, and it's like, well, how can I make this work? One thing that I had happen is a woman that was in the show with me said to me, "Well, when are you going back to Paris?" And I went, and I didn't have an answer. And it's like, well, I should have an answer. And if I don't have an answer, it's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized if I want this to happen, I need to make plans. I need to set something in motion. So I did.
so, could you tell our audience where they might be able to find you
Yes.
online?
Find me online. It's mystiquemacomber.com. First name is spelled MYSTIQUE. Last name is MACOMBER.com. And then there's a link there to my blog. And when you go to the website, you'll get a little pop-up that says, "Would you like to subscribe?" So you can put your email in, and then you'll get an email notification too.
And you'll also get a taste by going there of her various other achievements in life.
Oh. Yes, you can read my online portfolio and
Yes.
some of the other things that I have there too. So
Quite accomplished.
thank you.
So, is there any one message that you would like to leave with folks in terms of their aspirations or how they follow those aspirations and make a decision? Or?
You can always make a change. You can do it at any point in your life. You don't have to be 19. You can be 50 and decide that you're going to change your life. It just means that you need to be committed to it and be willing to take the steps. But anybody can do it. Anybody can make that change. And it's exciting and scary, but you can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Get
So.
out of here. Well, Carla, did you have any other questions you wanted
No,
to
I was
say?
just kind of relating some of the things that you said to my own life because I had cataclysmic event in my life many years ago. And I had a young man in my family. I was 14 at the time my husband died. And I had to figure out what to do to pay for mortgage and put food on the table and that type of thing. So I happened, I used to buy the Sunday Journal at that time, and there was an ad in the paper, because they have to post all these ads. At that time, they were better at it than they are now. And I said, well, I can do that. So I sent them my resume, and then I lined up my references, which were quite good. David Obey.
Oh, okay.
Very political. And I got the job. But I had to move down to UW-Whitewater, and I got a job as the director of the Small Business Development Center down there, and I was there for 18 years. And then I was doing immersion markets, which would be third world country markets that the U.S. could help expand to kind of bring them up to speed. Unfortunately, I had a chance to do China. You wouldn't call it a third world country, but back then they were. And it was interesting, and I had to very quickly make sure that I was politically able to have Wisconsin and the U.S. departments, like in agriculture, to work with me, to go there with me, to make sure we hit all the embassies that we needed to do, to make sure that we had a group of people that we could work with. And then my job was to bring them to the U.S., to have them be at Whitewater. It's probably one of the bigger business programs in the U.S., or at least in Wisconsin. And the best thing that you can then do is, once they're here, is to get them back home. You don't want, at that point, they were very upset about, are they going to return? You don't want to have anyone defect to the United States. So I had to count them all the time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I felt like I should put numbers on them. So I did lose 3 ladies. I took them to the EAA because I thought, well, maybe this would be something that they wouldn't see in China. And they were supposed to be back at a certain amount of time at the bus. Well, they didn't come back. And I'm trying to, oh my gosh, the lady that was working with me, who was Chinese, who was yelling directions to everybody, where did you see them last? What happened to them? What was, And so we spread out. We were trying to find these 3, not young ladies. They were probably 40, 50 years old. They got tired. They're sitting on a hill with the umbrellas, and it's perfectly sunny out, but they didn't want to get sunburned. So they're sitting on a hill watching the planes coming in. We're supposed to be back. Well, nobody had a wristwatch, so we got them back, and everybody settled down and got them all back to China, which was my big thing.
Sure.
Fortunately, the government could take a joke.
Well, they weren't knowledgeable about it. We don't talk about those types of things. They were missing for a little bit of time, but I didn't really lose them. They were there because they couldn't get out. I mean, they had no vehicle to go anyplace. So.
Well, Mystique, we really appreciate your joining us and sharing this journey that you're taking with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, and we will be displaying that address so viewers can follow your life. And you'll be going to Portugal. You anticipate?
I have my ticket bought. I think it's March 3rd that I leave.
Okay.
So yes, it's exciting.
Well, we wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Jesse.
for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity today.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. You both have cold hands.
It's the time of the season.
It is.
Yes. But thank you again. And again, this is Mystique Macomber. This is a very special presentation because we're talking about life changes and how career and life changes can have an effect on you. And we appreciate your sharing yours with us.
I want to just add one little thing in here
go ahead.
because what we're supposed to be talking about is business.
Okay.
It's a business
Sure.
show. And actually, going into business is sort of like your journey. You have to take a chance.
Yes.
You have to take a risk. You do a lot of different things in order to make that risk very small. And I belong to SCORE, which is an organization that helps you do that,
Yes.
so that, no, we don't go to Portugal, although, never know. There could be someone that would be thinking, oh, gee, I don't know, is there a market for this? Is this a niche market, or is this a broader market? What can I do? Can I take the opportunity to do this, and how much is it going to take? Can I do it part-time and then go into a full-time job? And some of our clients have done that. Bakeries and what have you have started that all out and then gone into it on a full-time basis. So your journeys has a lot of that aspect.
Definitely.
And you're going to have to go into business of some kind,
Yes.
or get a job
Yes.
somewhere along the
Yes,
line, which
correct.
should be very interesting.
And even just setting up the website means going through that process and learning about all the different things that go into that, and how do you do this, and how do you set up your marketing, and how do you do your email campaigns. And it's a big learning process. Even the writing itself, you're writing to optimize for search engines. So you're thinking about those things as you're writing. So there's so many different things that you can learn, but of course the internet is a wonderful place.
Right.
And there are so many resources there to, whether you're starting a business, like you said, a bakery, or something, physical, or if you're doing an online type job, if you're doing a website to sell a product or sell a service. Those are all things that, yes, you're definitely taking that same risk, like you said, minimize, but yeah, you have to put yourself out there and
You finally have
what's
to turn the key.
Yes, exactly. It's a very good analogy. If you want to go anyplace, you got to turn the key. Step on the gas.
Step on the gas, take your credit card out.
Yes, yes. So,
Well, once again, we thank Mystique Macomber. We thank you for tuning in. This is Jesse Austin, and on behalf of Carla Lenk, my co-host, we look forward to having you back for another episode of Community Business Matters. Thank you and take care.